Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to first off thank you for attending this evening. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. Thanks for those who joined us this evening. We have an 8:30 hard stop. The church actually wants the church would like to have their sanctuary back. So let's see if we can do our best to be efficient in our comments. Most of what this evening is going to be will be question and answer. We'll have some introductions here after a bit. I'm Steve Fessel. I'm the local city councilman for this part of Anaheim, District 5. Thank you all for, see if this keeps working. There we go. Let's get it right up close. Thank you for joining us this evening, I think. Okay. Maybe I'll have to use my school voice here in a moment. We'll see how far we can go. We'd like to, first off, this is a house of worship, incidentally, so make sure that we act and speak appropriately. Besides that, what I'll do is make some quick, brief introductions. We'll have a small presentation from some key individuals here, and then most of the meeting will be question and answer, and I'll handle the microphone. So I'll get out there in the audience along with my neighbors, and we'll try to move this along. First off, I'd like to introduce my council colleague, the Honorable Chris Murray from District 6. She joined us this evening. We also have in the audience past State Assembly woman, Ms. Young Kim. She joined us this evening as well. I think she has a few words in a moment that she'll offer some thoughts. From the perspective of handling the emceeing of the meeting, I've asked our assistant city manager, Ms. Christine Ridge, to handle that, and I'll be out in the audience. So at this point, what I asked our staff to do, where were we, where are we, and what can we expect? So pretty simple for me. Most of those of you that know me, I'm a pretty basic, simple guy. So I want to make sure that we get your questions answered, and any comments that you have to say heard. We're not here to set policy this evening. We're here to offer what information, updated information we have, and to listen to your comments and concerns. So that is our agenda in a nutshell for this evening. I'll hand the phone over to, Ms. Kim, would you like to, since I think you'd like to say a few words, you just have to get really close to this microphone.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much, Councilman Fessel. Thank you for inviting me. And wow, that's right. I got to stick closely. I just wanted to come and thank and lend my personal support for the effort that the city of Anaheim is doing, and especially also to Chris Murray, Councilwoman. I want to thank you for your leadership in the formation of the Operation Home Safe and the task force that's been formed.
Keep going.
Keep going. Okay. So, and so I'm here because I also wanted to listen and learn about the progress that is being made through this task force that was just formed. And this is not just unique to Anaheim, as you know. This has to be, it's a growing issue that needs to be handled at the county level, if not through the state level. And when I served in the state assembly, I try to address this issue.
He's got a microphone behind you.
Oh, okay. I won't talk too long. I just wanted to, like I said, come here to listen and learn about the ways that we can cooperate and collaborate on the ways to tackle this growing issue in the county. And if there is a way that we can...
Let's try that one.
Is that what it is? Okay. I don't know if this is any better.
Is this working either?
All right. So if there's any glitches, I'm making sure that it works before I hand this microphone over to you. How's that? But I just wanted to let you know, there are a lot of partners here that are working together to combat the homelessness issue. One of the ways is not just to push people from one place to another. We need to make sure there is a tangible solution that we can bring tangible results to really help people that want to be helped. You know, during the last year, or the last several months, throughout the year, I've been traveling and meeting with a lot of the stakeholders and organizations that work on this issue. And one of the organizations that I found, it's not here in Orange County, but in Los Angeles County, there is a nonprofit organization called Reignite Hope. What it does is, it was founded as a nonprofit group 7 years ago on the Skid Road, and over the last 7 years, they have helped individuals, homeless people, former gang members, whoever that may be, that want to be helped. They helped to get themselves on the road to self-sufficiency by providing them with certification to be a certified welder. And almost 100% of them have found employment, and they are on the road to self-sufficiency because they have brought themselves up and also helping their families out of poverty. If something like this is working in other counties, I think we can replicate this in Orange County, and I'm willing to do my part to make sure that programs like that work here in conjunction with all of the organizations and the programs and the city, law enforcement, all of us working together. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on one thing that is, it's not one person's problem, and it's not your problem, it's our problem, and we're going to have to tackle this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's either on all the way or no way. Wow.
I think it's an indication of what you're saying. I think you maybe go back and this might work best.
Well, I think these are good words to hear, that we work together. I think certainly that the homeless issue is one that we need to, evolve from all directions, and that's what we want to hear a little bit about tonight. So let's start with my council colleague.
Well, thank you, everybody. I might actually just spare you the microphone to talk real loud, if everyone's amenable to that. My name's Chris Murray, as my colleague shared. While I live in District 6, the Mayor Pro Tem, James Vanderbilt, and I are the last two remaining at-large council members in Anaheim, so I still have responsibility of representing the entire city, and happy to be here tonight to support my colleague with this community meeting. That's so important because these are issues that touch everyone's lives. I'd also like to take a moment to introduce our Chief, Julian Harvey, Brad Fieldhouse with CityNet, Brent Dennis, who heads up Community Services, Christine Rich, who's going to speak shortly, and then Larry Haynes with Mercy House as well, because we do have a robust collaboration in Anaheim that's been working strenuously since 2014, and really before then, but with a program called Coming Home Anaheim that was adopted in 2014. And since that time, with CityNet and Mercy House and Illumination Foundation, the county, and many, many nonprofit organizations, we have been able to help over 800 individuals achieve self-sufficiency and get into some type of permanent and supportive housing. So it is having success. Clearly, we still have great need, and so, and not just as we're seeing, it's an issue that is really become predominant in just about every community in Orange County and up and down the state. We have a very significant homeless population that are living in very dire conditions. The impacts of that are not just those living in these conditions, but the residents who live near them as well in these encampments. So it's gotten to the point in Anaheim, it has more than doubled since 2015. It's grown by nearly 50%. And it really got to a point in our community that it reached a crisis point. And before we had the same health impacts that other communities in San Diego and LA and Santa Cruz have had with outbreaks of hepatitis A. We have already had outbreaks of MRSA virus. There's been violence. There's been other really dire conditions down there. We called as a council, unanimously supported a program called Operation Homesafe that called for a state of emergency so that we could work and engage in resources at the local, state, and federal level. And then also put together a program, and Operation Homesafe stands for the SAFE, the acronym is Services, Aid, Fair Warning, and Enforcement. It really is about making sure we put the services in place to help individuals who are living in a state of homelessness. The program specifically, in addition to calling for that state of emergency and seeking support from other agencies, called for expediting 100 beds at Kramer Place. That was a program that Anaheim took the lead on. I see my former colleague, Jordan Brandon, is here with us tonight as well. Thank you, Jordan, for being here. He was instrumental in helping find that site and help lead that effort as well as a council member. We have the first full-service year-round homeless shelter in Anaheim. It was designed to be 200 beds. Unfortunately, only 100 opened with the initial opening. We need those additional 100 beds. We're working with the county to get those in place as quickly as possible. Also for reactivating the armories. When the shelter was built, there was an agreement in Fullerton to not have that armory open again, but we have worked with Fullerton and the county. They've agreed, and now both armories are actually up and open now. Create temporary emergency shelter for up to 500 beds, and Christine and I can talk to you about that effort. We have an item coming back to the council on December 5th to talk about parcels where we can put those services, and also additional programs to get in place with providing the services so that we can then help people move from the riverbed and into more secure and sanitary living conditions. We instituted a jurisdictional MOU for enforcement in the riverbed with the Sheriff's Department and neighboring cities. And then once those services are in place and people have been safely moved to a new temporary emergency shelter, we will have a community triage day or days where we are literally, and we've been meeting with all of our nonprofit organizations, the county and neighboring cities, to make sure that we can put together a community triage day where we have all of these services available adjacent to the riverbed so that individuals who are living there can come and get help, find an appropriate place to go, reconnect with whatever social services they need. We are going to be on site helping them, and it's going to be a very broad number of organizations who are going to join us. I even had lunch with the CEO of United Way in Orange County today. They want to be engaged in this. They're doing a lot of programs with the homeless in our community and through our schools in particular. And then beyond that, working with the sheriffs and our multi-jurisdictional task force to restore public safety along the riverbed and other areas where encampments have formed, and to restore and remediate the land that has been used for these encampments beyond that. So it's a very robust effort, and a lot of people are engaged in it. It's truly a team effort, but I'm happy to answer your questions, and just wanted to give you a summary. We do have in the back of the room a report card that gives you an update. It's a little bit out of date because we gave it to council about 3 weeks ago. So, but it gives you an update. It was one of the provisions of Operation Home Safe is to give a monthly update to council so that the public has access to the work we're doing and the metrics that we're working to achieve per the 15 action items that were adopted by council as part of this program. And so that progress report is printed up for you in the back of the room as well. I look forward to taking your questions this evening, and thank you for taking your time to be here. And one last thing, thank you to the Lamb of God Lutheran Church for opening your doors and your home to our community tonight.
I don't think I need a mic either.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Ms. Christine Ridge. She is our key person in the city of Anaheim for homeless services, and this evening will be kind of our moderator, and I'll get a microphone and I'll get prepared out of the audience here. We'll set that aside. Thank you. Go. Thank you.
So I just going to give a little bit more of an update to add on to what Chris said, but I'll be very brief because I know you want to move to the Q&A portion of the meeting. There's also a couple of key staff members in the audience that I want to point out to you in case you have questions for their area. We are joined by Deputy Chief Cyprian right here, our Public Information Manager, Mike Lister, and then hiding in the bats, we have Sergeant Lozo, who has probably worked the hardest on homeless law enforcement in the city. Way in the back, we have our Code Enforcement Manager, who has also worked diligently on the issue of homeless standards. Another individual from CityNet, Matt Bates, is right here in the front row. Now, CityNet is our contractor that runs our Anaheim Homeless Collaborative. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but I just want to mention that, it has been a priority of our elected officials to address homeless, and I truly believe that we have done more than any other city in Orange County at addressing it. I could go on and on and on and list all of the things that we've done, but we haven't done enough, and I know you're all here because of the concerns with the encampment at the river trail. So I do want to give you some brief updates. We had invited someone from the county to attend, but unfortunately Susan Price was out of town, so she could not be here. But there is good progress to report. In addition to Councilmember Murray's Operation Home Safe, where we're going to be doing robust services on a community triage day, the county has really stepped forward, and as Chris had mentioned, the Joint Law Enforcement Task Force started in September, and they've made 1,000 contacts with providing information on services to the homeless in the river. They also have made 180 arrests along the river trail. And the county has started posting new signage all along the river trail. They are starting at the south end of the county, and it's signage that indicates what the hours of the river trail when it is open for the public, and they're starting to do the enforcement of keeping it closed up when it's not open hours for the public. They most recently at a Board of Supervisors meeting, they approved a contract with a security firm to do that locking and unlocking of those areas. Now, obviously, that's something that eventually will come to our portion of the river trail, but first we have to do the services to assist those that are living there that want to access services. Let's see. So far, also, CityNet has a contract with the county in addition to having a contract with the city of Anaheim, and they have located 105. Is that 125. So they've assisted 125 people from the river trail to some form of housing.
From emergency housing all the way to permanent spread housing.
And then the armories, the Santa Ana Armory is already open, so that's providing 200 beds for winter shelter. And the Fullerton one will be open on December 1st, and I've just told it has 237, so that's 437 beds where the individuals can sleep at night and get a warm meal. So I'm not going to spend any more time talking about that because I know you want to get to the Q&A portion.
Chief, is there anything, any statement that you'd like to make? Just as a brief recap.
Very briefly, just Councilmember Fessel asked, where were we, where are we today, where are we going? Where were we a few years ago? 15,000 calls for service a year. We didn't have the coordination of efforts that we do today. There were agencies kind of not necessarily working in tandem, maybe at cross purposes at times. Today we're coordinated. And I look out at your faces and I know the frustration. I can imagine if I lived adjacent to the river trail or dealing with this problem, I'd be here as well. So I completely understand where are we going. To Councilmember Murray's support and the support of the entire council, we do have the 200-bed shelter, which will be online. 100 beds are online already. And the goal is to eliminate the problem in the riverbed and eventually, it sounds Pollyanna-ish, but eventually end homelessness throughout the city. So that's what I told you we would talk about, and I'm sure we're welcoming your questions. And it's a very challenging problem.
Thank you, Chief. Our representatives from CityNet, these are actually the folks that are really our first, responders, if you will. They're in the riverbed every day. They service the needs of the homeless across the city. I can't say enough about their good work. They have some wonderful success stories. And do you want to just say any introductory remarks?
Yeah, so Brad Fieldhouse, Executive Director of CityNet. I think that's what we've experienced is that the impulse to sort of work together is sort of a great idea, but sort of it really does take that sort of coordination. And when those things come together, community members, agencies, the political folks, law enforcement, where we all work together, it actually does create a safety net that actually makes a difference. That we do have lots of resources that we still need to bring online, but when there's an efficiency to the existing system, it helps the process work, right? So we're making sure that people are taking advantage of the opportunities that do exist. And that's really what the commitment has been of the collaborative effort in Anaheim, and as well in the flood control channel. We work in both of those contexts. It really has been, let's get as many people who are desiring help to get access to the resources that are available, and let's make sure that the efficiencies in the system work while we're working on some of these near-term and long-term projects. So that's as far as from our concern, that's what we're excited about, is that we get to see that it does work. It hasn't helped everybody yet, but there are some really good success stories and more happening every day. So that's what we wake up thinking about.
You're all aware that Anaheim does host the first all-inclusive homeless shelter in Orange County, and we have its operator here. If you'd like to kind of maybe give us at least an update, how are things working there? When are we going to get the next 100 beds? I think that's probably a question that will be on somebody's thought here pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm really not prepared to make remarks. I'll simply say that we think the other 100 beds will come in the summer of 2018 is what we're told.
Okay.
So I'm happy to take your questions as the evening progresses.
Okay, well, at this point, let's go ahead and really I want question and answer, and you're the first one, so let's go to you first.
Okay, so I understand that you're helping people, so when you're talking to them and they want help, you guide them toward a bed. What about the people that don't want help? Because those seem to be the neighbors that live by where I live, and they don't want help. And so they're there and they want to camp out. What are you doing about that? Because I think there's a slogan that there's got to be a bed for every head, which I think is a crock of duty, because that's unrealistic in the sense that that's not true. The percentages of people that want to stay out on the street or camp want to be there. So you can't say that if there's 1,000 people living along the riverbed, then you have to have 1,000 beds for those heads, because they don't want them. So we feel frustrated because we don't see any movement with the people that still are there. And then Fountain Valley bumps them all out. They come down to the riverbed, okay, because we can't do anything because there's an injunction from a federal judge, because there's got to be a bed for every head. Help us understand this, please, okay?
I believe that question is probably in the minds of many of our neighbors out there. Do we want to address that?
How about answering the question?
Okay, well, the question, I think her question was, and I held the mic right up to her. So the question was, there in her neighborhood, it appears that there are many homeless people that are not searching or willing to accept services. So what happens to them? Because again, there has to be a bed for every head.
Right.
And what about those who do not wish services? What happens to them? So can we address that?
I'll give it a college try. First and foremost, the 1,000 people number, and I don't know, maybe Brad might have.
1,093.
Is that what the paper says in the River Trail area?
Yes.
Okay, I thought they contacted some of those people multiple times. Let's talk about the injunction first of all. The injunction by Judge Carter, the federal injunction, had to do with time, place, and manner restrictions. Had to do with if a homeless person's property is taken from them, it has to be stored within a certain distance from the location. It had to do with distance from the actual trail where camping can take place. It didn't have anything to do with necessarily, hey, in this area it's King's X, anything goes. It didn't say that. Now, the county CEO, in a conversation with me, made it fairly clear that Judge Carter, for the time being, isn't willing to prosecute certain crimes that occur within a certain area from, I think it's south of Ball Road to Chapman Avenue. On the west side, it's the area we're all talking about. So there is still some unsettled legal issues in this area. I'm going to be the first one to tell you that. This area has been designated specifically by a federal judge, but it has to do with time, place, and manner restrictions on where the person's property must be stored, how long of a walk. It has to be only a 15-minute walk from the location, these type of restrictions. So I want everyone to be clear on what the judge's order. There were 2 lawsuits, and Judge Carter's order is specifically about time, place, and manner restrictions on how we deal with property and distance from the pavement that camping can occur.
How are we resolving that? Are we putting storage containers out there near them?
There is a storage facility within, just as the judge prescribed, there is a storage place where we store their
Okay,
belongings.
so then they have the storage containers, but they don't want to go into a shelter. They want to stay where they are, so is that what we're doing? That's their campground for the rest of their life?
No, what I think you've heard tonight is that our officers are part of the countywide task force now, at the request of council. We are part of it, and I think that's a good idea, that we're leveraging resources from multiple agencies to address this problem. Now, we have to do it in a compassionate way. We have to recognize that a lot of these people don't have anywhere else to go, and so we are slowly offering them more and more resources, but there will come a point where this area will no longer be accessible for overnight camping. That is
But they're
going
going
to
to go
happen.
somewhere. See, that's the thing that I don't understand why, if you can buy a building and you can put 200 beds in it, why can't you find, I know this is probably difficult, but find a plot of ground for the ones who want to camp out like a KOA type place and allow them to live their life the way they want to live it. If you want to have compassion, the reality is that's what they want.
So our research, we've done considerable research going around and looking at the different models in California, outside of California, Utah, San Diego, and our professionals can talk about that. San Antonio, Texas. The kind of free-for-all campground model comes with a host of issues as well. There's crime issues, there's victimization that goes on in there, there's public health issues. So it's not necessarily the model that we may want, and it's not the panacea.
The same thing happens in a shelter. In other words, in a shelter, when the people who want to go away, the hierarchy of the homeless people
It's a far more
falls into
controlled.
place.
It's a far more controlled environment in a homeless shelter. There are thresholds to use the facility. There are rules, and they can lose those privileges if they don't adhere to the rules.
Let me move on to another individual. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lou Noble, and I thank for the project Safe Home. We actually have a few more people from Fountain Valley now to work in our side. My question is, I've seen a lot of homeless women, especially the elderly and the disabled. We heard about the people that are being helped that could go back into society and work. But I want to know, why can't we get the elderly women, the disabled people out of the streets? I just met one lady today. She's been 5 years waiting. She had a stroke about 2 months ago. And I can't help her because she's been waiting. So hopefully that we could get some more shelters. And the problem with shelters is that a lot of people don't like to go there because they feel like in confinement. They get stuck like in a warehouse. And a lot of people get sick there. So,
We'll let them answer that.
So this is my question is how can we get the elderly first and the disabled out there? Is there any help for them, like right away?
Well, to add up to the former question and partly your question. So one of the components of Operation Home Safe is working with the county and finding a temporary site where we can have a temporary emergency shelter so that after we've exhausted providing services to everybody in the riverbed and there's still individuals down there, there will be a location for them to relocate to. With regard to specific with elderly women, you know, the county has limited beds, but there are a number of nonprofits. In fact, in the county of Orange, there's 2,555 beds that are operated by nonprofits, and some are specifically for women, single women. So it's about linking them up to the right type of service, and I know that CityNet has access to those nonprofits. So if you want to provide us information on the women that you've been working with, we'd be happy to try to link them up.
Yeah, I can speak to that too. So, part of it is, I would agree with you 100%, Lou, is part of the challenge is it's where I know who you're talking about too as well. So I think part of the challenge is what we know about services is the services are more available to people in that sort of condition, right? So it is for women, in particular, kids, obviously, veterans, obviously. Those are sort of where you sort of, from a case management point of view, there are more options available. It is still difficult. I know we've been working with that person for a while, but we have to also sort of work with them. They sort of have to be agreeable in terms. We don't just take people and put them in a place because we think that's great for them. So it is that sort of ongoing dance of sort of working with what they're interested in, what's available, and sort of helping them to trust us and work through that process to make sure they can get that. But I would agree, there's not enough of those kind of beds, but there are lots of different agencies that we would work with a person like that to try and get them off the streets, ultimately, and get them into some sort of permanent supportive housing as well. That would be the ideal plan for them.
One more question here.
Yes, my name is Heidi Zimmerman.
Stand up and we'll do our best.
My name is Heidi Zimmerman. I've been here for 55 years. I have a lot of friends that are homeless, that used to have homes. My question is, if you're wondering why people don't want to go to the shelters, it's if you want people off the streets, you should give them a place where they have some privacy. So my question to each one of you is, and I would like to hear the answer, do you want to stay in the shelters, and why do you not want to stay in the shelter? That's my question, and if you answer that honestly, you will understand why people don't want to go into what you call shelters. And there's no privacy in there, people steal things as soon as you close your eyes. So I want to hear from each one of you, do you want to stay in the shelter? And if you don't want to stay in the shelter, then why are you expecting other people to stay there? That's my question.
Anybody want to tackle that one?
The question was, would we want to stay in the shelters? The fact is, everybody up here, and many of the individuals, the staff, county, and nonprofits that are in the room with us tonight are all working to try to connect individuals to services. That is the goal, and working very hard to do so. If I had to stay in the shelter or live in the riverbed, yes, I'd choose the shelter. There's security, there are restrooms, there is food, and there are social services. So that would be my choice. The fact is, we also have a responsibility to the general public, and everybody has a right to public safety. And none of us have the right to make somebody less safe because of our housing condition. So if we can provide a safe and secure and sanitary shelter as an alternative to living on concrete and dirt with no security, where we know they're being robbed, where we know drug deals are happening and drug use is happening on a prolific level, where disease is spreading at such a rapid clip that we have the second largest outbreak in California in the nation in the last 20 years of Hep A. That's not happening in shelters, it's happening in encampments. We have an obligation to respond, and that's what we're attempting to do. Thank you.
Can you hear me back there if I talk like this?
Yes.
So as the guy who runs these shelters and has for